So this is, so we do, okay. So I see, here we are. We're streaming live already. You just started.
We are. We're in it. I know you are tight on time.
Yes.
So we are going to make a divergence from our normal show breakdown. So normally the show gets into sort of the entrepreneur's journey, specifically kind of the bottom of their journey when things are at their worst. That's why the show is called There Is No Try.
Love it.
But I'm so excited. I'm a fan. I've been reading
Thank you.
Entrepreneur Magazine for forever. I've been following you for a long time.
Thank you.
And so as we're on abbreviated time schedule, Jason, do you mind if I just rapid fire some questions at you?
Sure. Let's do it.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know, Jason, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, as a VC guy and a founder myself, Entrepreneur is one of the sort of the Bibles that are out there. And so I've been reading Jason's work for forever and a huge fan. And as such, I have two things I want to talk about.
Sure.
Number one is in regards to your personal social media, sort of outside or separate from Entrepreneur. You had been very open and authentic with folks around making that sort of shift from, posting pictures of what you had for lunch, as, kind of the more traditional sort of personal to more of a voice or a leadership voice within that space. And one of the things that you do that I love is that you write something in a notebook and share it, something that's thought-provoking or intriguing. How did that come about? Tell me about that process.
I was looking for the notebook to show people, but I can't. I don't know. I have a terribly messy desk, and I don't know where the notebook. Oh, it's behind the computer.
Of course.
It's behind the computer. Anyway, so here's the notebook I'm working on right now. It came to me thanks to my friend Jason Harris at Mechanism. This is his company, and he sent me a bunch of notebooks, and so I use them. So yeah, the one that I just posted yesterday is "You Are Someone's Solution." Here it is. So where did that come from? I was looking around Instagram and I was trying to figure out what my franchises could be. I think that everybody who does social media well should have a number of franchises, repeatable, simple, scalable concepts that they can execute and that people can come to and expect. I believe that if you're doing personal branding, if you're doing any kind of audience building, basically anything that you could call media in some form or another, you need to be balancing these two things, which are predictability and surprise. And that is to say that predictability, people have to know why they're coming to you, what value you have to their lives, what is it that they are going to get, broadly speaking, by following you. They need to know that. And if they don't know that, then there's no reason to sign up for you. But the surprise is that they don't know how you're going to articulate it. They don't know what you're going to deliver to them each time. So when just grabbing something else off my messy desk, right? So when we publish Entrepreneur Magazine, this is predictability and surprise. The predictability is that that when you pick up the magazine, it's going to be about entrepreneurship, problem solving. It's going to inspire you. It's going to tell you what's going on in the world of business. The surprise is that you don't know what stories are going to be there and you don't know what you're going to learn. But there's a bad and good way to do this. The bad way would be that you pick up Entrepreneur Magazine and you open it up and it's actually 17 magazine. Bad surprise. Nobody wants that, right? No. That's not what you came for. So you got to balance it right. And so I was thinking, what are the things that I can do in my social media? What are the predictabilities and surprises? And I know that a lot of people love posting and love consuming inspirational quotes and of the like. And I thought, okay, can I do a version of that on my own page, but give it a spin that makes it feel more me? And one of my core values as a brand, so to speak, as a personal brand, is accessibility. I want to seem very accessible. I want to be very accessible. I respond to people, everybody who DMs me. And also, I just want to seem really real because I am really real. I'm just a guy trying to figure it out. I'm not some special person. So I thought, well, why don't I do it in a notebook that I'm holding up myself in my own crappy handwriting? And that way it'll feel like, even though it's taking on a form that's familiar in Instagram, it has something that feels like it's coming directly from me and that it's expressing one of the things that I want people to associate with me.
I love it. I love it. Now, personal question.
Sure.
That's a shift, right? Like, did you feel weird or awkward?
Yes.
Right? Because I'm sure your first followers were like your mom and your, high school friends and whatever, like, right? Like everybody's is. Like, is that a weird kind of shift? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, it was a really weird shift. I mean, I didn't I didn't make this abrupt turn on Instagram because I actually wasn't on Instagram until I decided to be on professionally. But even still, the first people to follow me were, yeah, they were all my friends and my mom and whatever. And it is very, very strange to suddenly be a character to these people, because that's what you are. If you're going to be a personal brand on social media, you are a character. You're playing a character, and that character has your same name and looks exactly like you, wouldn't you know it? And yet and that's not to say that that character is completely inauthentic, right? It's not like Daniel Day-Lewis playing a character, right? It's
Right.
it's you playing a version of yourself, but a really distilled, focused version of yourself. Whereas I am a full and complicated person as anybody is. I have all sorts of stuff, and yet you don't want that stuff. Who cares about that? So you don't want to hear about my kids. You don't want to, right?
Right.
What you want is the 5% of me that's relevant to you. So I am
Yes.
distilling myself down to the 5% of me that's relevant to you, and then I'm going to be relentlessly offering that. And that means being really, really on message. Also being very earnest, because I know that my audience is very earnest, and that's a way that I relate to them, is earnestness, which is, I'm not that earnest in person in real life. And so doing that at first was very, very awkward. But I'll tell you the two things that you have to do. Number one, you just have to start doing it, right? Just like anything else in entrepreneurship, get out,
100%.
just start doing it. And then number two is that once you do it, you'll start to get feedback, and that feedback is critical. And you will discover, as I discovered at least, that a lot of my friends really liked it. Like, they really liked it. They thought it was
Yeah.
good, and it was helpful to them in their own journeys as entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And they were like, "Oh, this is cool. Jason's like got all this insight that's useful to me." They liked it, and that was actually really freeing. Going out there, not being afraid of it, putting it out there, getting some good feedback, and then taking that feedback and building it into what you do and creating a kind of virtuous cycle. It really matters.
So I love that. I fully agree and subscribe to that. And when I look at my own social in terms of what resonates and what maybe doesn't resonate as strongly, what I have found consistently is that the more authentic I am about the entrepreneurial journey, and specifically when things are hard, right? Because I think, unfortunately, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, entrepreneurship has now become a cachet. It used to be a dirty word. Now it's like a sexy thing to do.
Yep.
And now, because of Instagram, it's all, private jets, caviar, and Lamborghinis.
I hate that stuff.
I
hate that.
despise it deeply.
Yeah.
And so when I post about being an entrepreneur, famously, I post sitting in coach in Southwest in the back on crappy flight, right? Like, that's real life. Like, that's just how it is, right? And so I post those things about, hey, one week I got some great phone calls and great emails and business is great. The next week, oh my God, am I going to be able to make payroll? Oh my God, am I going to make, right? Like, that's real. And so I found that resonates very well within my audience. And just like you, and I'm saying this to encourage everyone else, my friends that are also on similar journeys loved it. And they were like, preach, man, keep going.
Yep.
So that's been huge. Okay. Shifting gears.
Sure.
This, I pulled some of my audience and some friends of mine that are fans of yours, and they were like, okay, my favorite thing that you post about, and something I want to hear more about, when bad pitches sent into you.
People love it.
Hilarious.
Yeah. People love that stuff.
Amazing. Okay. So give me one or two of your favorite worst pitches that you've gotten that maybe pop to mind, and then a little education on kind of how you should approach an editor or a journalist.
Right. It's, it's so funny because I'm pulling up my phone because the way that I do. So what you're referencing, for people who don't know, is that on my Instagram, every Monday I call, and this is another franchise, right? This is a franchise. I call it Inbox Monday. And for a while I was posting these things at random, and then they were getting such good responses that I decided to formalize it, and I called it Inbox Monday. And so now basically whenever anything crappy hits my inbox, I just take like a screenshot of it, and then my like phone is now full of this stuff. So right, and I'll just sort of get to it eventually. So I don't know. I mean, there's so much crap, and I don't want to waste our time with me like flipping through this. So let me just see if I can find something like just like really, really fast. And if not, I'll just try to summarize something. Well, okay, here's one that I haven't posted yet, but that I actually probably will do on Monday. So, okay, so this is, I'm not going to show you this because I don't want to reveal the person. I always black the person out because this isn't about shaming people.
Right.
So I have 3 in a row. Let's see. They arrived on July 28th, September 14th, and today, which I guess was probably about a week ago. And so each message, this all on LinkedIn, it's always the same. Hi, Jason. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. I just released a podcast episode with, and then blank. Can you do me a favor and share it and like and share? Can you do me a favor and give it a like and share with your network? Thanks in advance. And then a link. And it's this message 3 different times with 3 different episodes of their podcast. What is the value to me? Why am I doing you a favor and over and over and over again? Right. And it's like, I just don't understand what people think that they're doing. So you sent this to a bazillion people, and
Yes.
your like ROI is going to be so low because you didn't offer any value. You didn't give me any reason to care about this. The only thing that you did was like, hey, I made a thing. Can you do me a favor? No, I don't even know who you are. Why would I do you a favor? It doesn't mean it. So, I mean, over and over again, the takeaway from these bad pitches. And you know, sometimes they're about pitching media. Sometimes they're just people that, you know, like he probably sent that to everybody he knows, or everybody he doesn't know, as it turns out. And
Right.
you know, the lesson is really always the same because pitching isn't actually that complicated. You have to be the value. Like, don't ask for an opportunity, be the opportunity. And that means that whenever you're reaching out, to anybody, to media, to a personal brand person, to an investor, to a potential partner, to a customer, it doesn't matter. You have to understand what it is that they are looking for, and
Yes.
then how you can deliver that to them. And only by you delivering that value to them will they return some value to you. So even when you know what you want, and obviously we all know what we want, I understand that when people are reaching out to me and they're doing a good job by like showing value to me, which, you know, generally means sharing something that they know is going to be useful to my audience, and sharing it in a way in which I can understand that. Right. I'm not saying value to me like here's $100, right? I'm saying
Right.
like, what's the value to my audience? That even when they're doing that, I understand that they want something. They're not like out handing out presents like Santa Claus. They want something, but
Right.
they understand that the only way to get that is to make sure that they are being value forward. And people just forget that.
100%. So I own Acme.co. We sell widgets, and I would love more than anything for Jason over at Entrepreneur Magazine to talk about how great Acme Co is and our
Right.
widgets are. However, that's the worst pitch in the whole world. And frankly,
Totally.
not only do you not care, your audience cares even less. Right.
Yes.
It needs to be, why does your audience care? So put yourself, all these folks who want to be an Entrepreneur Magazine or Wall Street Journal or whatever
Sure.
publication you're trying to get into. What does the audience need? What do they need to be fed with? What's interesting to them? Because that's what the journalists, the editors, etc., want to drive their content to that, right? So put yourself on the other end. Forget about Acme Co and the widgets. Put yourself there and work backwards.
That's right. Understand who it is that you're reaching out to and what they're trying to do. A journalist is not a service provider. Their job is not to give you press. Their job is to serve their reader. So the better you understand what they think their job is and how they're executing that job, the better you can come along and be of value to them.
Yes, that's very well said. Okay, the question that I'm the most excited to ask.
Okay.
Final question. We're running out of a little bit of time here, but I really wanted this one. You have talked to more founders and entrepreneurs than probably anyone I know, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most valuable? Is
Right.
it education, funding, idea, or grit? There's your 4. Funding, education, idea, grit.
Well,
Power rank that for me.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't use the word grit, but of those 4, I would say that the answer is grit. The way that the word that I use is adaptability. I think that the number one thing that I see, the number one, is the ability to adapt to change, to recognize that change is not a force to reckon with. It is an opportunity to harness. And the people who I see who are successful over and over again have varying philosophies in their lives and in their business about how to recognize that change is coming and how to adapt to it and how to make sure that they themselves continue to be nimble. One of my favorite things that anybody said to me was Malcolm Gladwell, best-selling author, podcaster, journalist, etc. I was asking Malcolm what to him is a Malcolm Gladwell story. Like, how does he filter what projects he takes on? And he said that, probably deep down there is some guiding force that he's not willing to acknowledge, but that he tries his absolute best to not define that for himself because, and these were the words exactly out of his mouth that I immediately wrote down as soon as he said them, self-perceptions are powerfully limiting. And that the more that you define yourself, the more you will be turning down other opportunities that could be amazing. And so he tries not to have an idea of what he is or isn't, or what he's good at or what he's not, or what he's interested in or what he's not interested in. Instead, he keeps himself open. He tries not to define himself. Now, of course, we all define ourselves in some way or another. We all have some guiding force, some curiosity of the world, but to the degree that we can, keep in mind that self-perceptions are powerfully limiting. That is the key. And so, when you ask me to rank these things, I mean, listen, I've met people who are wildly successful who went to Princeton and people who dropped out of high school. And I've met people who are wildly successful who raised $100 million and who raised $0, right? Like, that stuff, fine, it could, certainly depending on the circles that you run in and the things that you're trying to do, it could give you an advantage. I won't deny that. If you went to Princeton, you're going to walk out with a network of people who are probably pretty influential and helpful, but you don't need it. It's helpful, but you don't need it. But what you need is to have internalized that self-perceptions are powerfully limiting, and that you have to change before you're forced to change, and that change is opportunity. And if you don't have that stuff, then you are going nowhere.
That is incredibly well said. And I love that. I went on a limb because that's exactly what I believe. I believe that tenacity, persistence, adaptability, as you called it, really the same core strengths there, are by far the most valuable. But sometimes when I say that to my audience and to others, when I do speaking, what have you, they kind of roll their eyes. They're like, yeah, but. And they want to fall back on that guy went to Yale and that gal went to MIT and that person raised $100 million or whatever. And that just generically has just been proven to be not true. Even HBS came out with a study and said that sort of tenacity or adaptability, the sort of stick-to-itedness, if that's the right way to say that, is by far one of the most valuable traits. So last rapid question, then I'll let you off the hook here.
Sure.
Is there any one or two entrepreneurs in the years that you've been doing this that just struck you, meaning you met with them early on and you went, that person, like they've got this sort of star quality, but from a founder perspective? Is there anybody that left you with the warm and fuzzies that then went on to be sort of mega that we might know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there are plenty. It's funny. I meet people at so many different points in their journey. And because of the role that I play, I don't often catch up with people throughout the course of their journey. I mean, I meet people at the beginning, I meet people in the middle, whatever it is, but there are only a handful that I would say that I check in with maybe like every year or so. But I'll tell you that let me reframe that question a little bit.
Please.
People often ask me about like who are the most impressive entrepreneurs that I've met, and there are lots of very impressive people who I've met whose names right? I've been very fortunate to have really interesting conversations with really interesting people who are really famous, right? From Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to Richard Branson. But and those people have all told me things that I found to be super interesting, right? And I mean, sort of just to share those two examples. So Richard Branson, I asked him what it is that he thought enabled him to build a company that went in a million different directions and was constantly exploring new industries, which is very unusual. Virgin is an unusual brand. And he said that the answer was that every other company hires people to do a specific job, and then they tell them to keep doing that job. Whereas he hires people and then encourages them to explore outside of their job and find new opportunities and then bring them to him. And so you might have somebody who's hired for one thing, but then discovers that for whatever reason, they think cruise ships is a great opportunity and they bring it to him, and they don't know anything about cruise ships, but they spend a lot of time on it and they convinced him, and now he's going to go do it. And so, the way that he used it, he said other companies hire people and ask them to stick to their onions. And I don't know if that's a Britishism or not, but he doesn't ask people to stick to their onions. And so that was really interesting. And, that's a way in which you're building adaptability right into the core culture of your brand. And then who else did I say? Oh, I said The Rock. So The Rock, I did a cover. I interviewed him and his business partner, Danny Garcia, for a cover story. And the thing that stuck with me the most that I loved from what they said was that they said that they're never focused on process. They're focused on outcome. So the process can change and should change over and over again. What they need to be focused on is what are they trying to get out of this? What's the goal as they move through? And then they will evolve how they do it along the way as they learn. And I really loved that. Because I think that, again, it really goes back to embracing change. But the reason that I bring all this up is to say that although that's really cool and it's great to say that I met those people and I have selfies and it's fun, the people who tend to stick with me the most were the ones who are working in completely random industries, doing completely random things. Some maybe you've heard of some of their brands, you probably haven't heard of most of them, but they, with limited resources and just grit, as you say, figured out something really clever and insightful to get through some challenge, to find some new opportunity. And I love those stories more because they're more relatable. I mean, not everyone is going to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but everyone can be like the random woman who made a butter dish and then came up with some creative way to do the product marketing for it. Right. And it's just a story that I love to tell. And so the reason that I share that with you is to say that I think that anybody can be that story. Like anybody can be the really interesting, fascinating entrepreneur. And you don't have to be that person who people see and they're like, oh, that person's going somewhere. And then 3 years later, they've built a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, that's cool. Some of those people exist, but that doesn't have to be the journey in order to be amazing and to be impressive and to stop people in their tracks and say, wow, that's really smart.
I love that. Great answer to go out on. Jason, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Where can we direct our audience to? Where can they learn more about you? Entrepreneur Magazine, obviously. But where else?
Sure. I'll give you three things. So number one,
Please.
my website, jasonfeifer.com, because if you go there, you'll get prompted to sign up for my newsletter, which is a newsletter about how to find opportunity and change. So please check that out. Number two, like I said, Instagram, we were talking about that a little bit. Please, give me a follow, drop me a line, DM me. I will respond at HeyFeifer, HeyFeifer. HeyFeifer. And the last thing is, so I have a podcast, which is called Pessimist's Archive. I'm changing the name because it's not pessimistic, but it's been out for a number of years and has a really strong audience. And I am telling stories about why people were afraid of change throughout history and what it ultimately took to get them to come along. And then what we can learn about that, about how we can build change into ourselves. So this is, if you want to know why America had a absolute insane moral crisis over the teddy bear in 1907 and what we can learn about that for today, I got you covered. So Pessimist's Archive.
I love it. All of those will be actually included in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. Also, check out pierrerogers.com. You'll find upcoming podcasts on there, as well as just my thoughts and ramblings about various things in the world. So appreciate you, Jason. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was very enlightening. Thank you.
Oh, hey, thank you. Appreciate you. Take care, everyone.
Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.